What's up, everybody? I'm ecstatic. I'm over the moon. I'm overjoyed. I'm so looking forward for my next Doctor Who tier list video, guys. I'm so happy. We're doing Series 9. My favorite. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. It's like Christmas. Come early. Let me just get right into this one. Let's start with The Magician's Apprentice. Episode fucking sucks. Oh, I wonder if the next episode will be any better. Oh wait, no it's not. You know how I said Asylum of the Daleks was the worst premiere of Doctor Who? These episodes are way worse. It's not even close. I would take Asylum of the Daleks over these episodes any day. Where do I even start? Let's start with the fact that part 1 is completely pointless filler trash. Nothing happens. At all. Can you believe it? Like, legit nothing happens. The Doctor, Missy and Clara get taken to Skaro. And then the episode ends just there. Oh yeah, we've got the planes freezing in the sky and Missy making a mockery of my favorite show, Doctor Who. I don't know which one's worse, part 1 or part 2. The episode starts off with something maybe potentially interesting with the kid Davros, but it doesn't do anything with it. So the Doctor is surprised that the Daleks say mercy, even though the Daleks have said mercy like a million billion times before in the past. The Daleks aren't actually saying exterminate, it's just their emotions being turned into automatic firing. Incredibly dumb. The fact that Davros and the Doctor spend the whole episode talking to each other, but both of them are pretending, making the whole thing pointless. Davros opening his eyes. The crowning turd on this shit sandwich is the fact that the Doctor doesn't even beat Davros by coming up with a counter plan. The Doctor defeats the Daleks by losing because the Daleks' plan was so incompetent that they just lose accidentally. Their plan was to use the Doctor's regeneration energy to recharge them or whatever, but doing this accidentally killed them all because the Dalek sewers regenerated. How did Davros not see this coming? Congratulations, you played yourself. Why are the Dalek sewers even a thing? The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar is another in the long Mr. Moffat trend, especially in the Peter Capaldi series, of having episodes with just no threat, no story, no nothing. Nothing happens in these episodes, and yet it thinks it's so clever. Thinks it's doing something. These episodes are a flop. I'm gonna put Under the Lake in C tier and I'm gonna put Before the Flood in B tier. Under the Lake is another one where literally nothing happens in part 1. Rewatch that episode and take notes on how little things happen. I guess it sets the scene. It sets the scene, guys. Wow, that's so cool. It's basically complete fodder just to set up part 2. Nothing individually happens in this episode. And I must say, on my rewatch this time around, I was incredibly bored. I went in with high hopes for this two-parter. I will say part 2 is considerably better. I wouldn't say it's mind-blowing. It definitely has its flaws, but you know, at least stuff happens. And you know, it's got that bootstrap paradox. It's got the Doctor in the TARDIS going over himself. You know, interesting things happen in the second part. I mean, did we really need a full episode of setup? Like, surely we could have had some things happen in there. Talking of episodes I don't like, The Girl Who Died is solidly D tier, and spoiler alert, The Woman Who Lived goes in F. The Woman Who Lived is another episode where literally nothing happens. I mean, I guess they try in the very last 10 minutes with that lion face paint villain. What is this, fucking baby time story hour? What is going on here? I really don't like the character of Ishilda, or me. Haha, so quirky. I don't really care for Maisie Williams as an actress. I don't find her character compelling. I think the editing, especially in part 2, is incredibly weird. I mean, there's a lot of strange incidents that occur in this two-parter, and none of them are good. I would say the thing that stops The Girl Who Died from being F tier is that Peter Capaldi is pretty funny in it, but in The Woman Who Lived, he doesn't really have anything to do. By the way, have you noticed something, guys? This series is all two-parters. You know, I've got to commend Mr. Moffat. You know, he listened to the fan feedback. He listened to people like me who were saying 45 minutes is too short. You need to give these episodes multiple parts. The problem is that in the series where he decided to do all two-parters, it would have been fine if they were all one-parter. These stories are all small scale, and I think the Zygon Invasion and Inversion is an example of that. I'm just going to slide both of them into D tier. Part 1 especially is pretty bad. In fact, there are some parts which I would say are insulting to your intelligence. But the episode at least has a good production design. Both of them actually have a pretty good production design. I think that that's what saves them from being F tier, as well as the Lee epic Doctor speech at the end of part 2, which, you know, I will admit is very well performed by Peter Capaldi. Sadly, not enough to save the episode, but you know, I'll still give him props. The metaphors here are lazy and don't make sense. Do I even want to say it? Yeah, Zygons are meant to be Muslims in this episode, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. It is insulting. It is insulting. Let me just say that. Oh, but don't worry guys, we have Sleep No More next. I was actually going to be nice to this episode and put it in D, but no, it's fucking F. This episode sucks. Even people who like Series 9 think this episode is bad because it's just not good. So I will give it its props. It's doing the found footage thing, you know, and it tries to put a spin on it by saying that the sleep dust is what's recording the found footage. You know, it tries to be clever, but it just flops. The intercutting of the guy who's like, there's something in your eye. All of that completely falls flat. I think the premise is bad. I think the supporting cast are terrible. It's just a very uncomfortable watch. I think that guy who's acting like an animal the whole time, oh my god, that's so hard to watch. Guess the pro for this episode is that this poster is quite visually appealing, you know what I mean? It's got the rule of threes, you know, it's a pretty good photo. We're not talking about the episode though, sadly, because there's not much redeemable here. Face the Raven. I'm gonna put this one in... Do I put it in B or C? I'm gonna be nice and put it in B, because you guys know me. I'm not a hater.
Stop the cap.
I must say, when Clara died, the first time I watched this episode, I cheered. I was so thankful she was gone. Thank fuck she's gone. The way she dies is very contrived, and it is another of those Clara exits, those dreaded Clara exits that is just completely undone in the next episode. So, you know, I can't really give it props for emotional gut punch, because A, it wasn't, at least to me, and B, it immediately gets undone. You've got the Backstreet here, which is a reused set. The idea of these aliens being disguised is terrible. You have Cybermen in the Backstreet. What? It's a very ill-conceived episode, I will say that. The more I talk about it, the more I want to put it down to C tier. Yeah, fuck you guys, this is C tier. I mean, the opening act is pretty good. It's just the second and third act are boring and kind of suck. I mean, it's got Black Panther in it. I guess that's a pro. But don't worry, guys. We finally have an actual good episode. I'm gonna put Heaven Sent in A tier, and I'm gonna already throw all of you off by putting Hellbent in B tier. And the reason why I'm saying where I put Hellbent is because I feel that Heaven Sent and Hellbent being interconnected affect each other's rankings. Now, originally when the episodes aired, I really liked Heaven Sent. I would have put Heaven Sent in S tier easily. And Hellbent, I did not like as much. I think I would have put Hellbent in around C or D tier if we're talking about just first time round. But you know, I've let it simmer a little bit. I've rewatched these episodes a couple of times, and Hellbent has gone up drastically in my rankings, but in doing so, it has in turn brought Heaven Sent down with it. I feel like you can view these episodes, like these two episodes, in two different ways. Either you can view them individually, so Heaven Sent is its own just episode, just set apart all by itself, and so is Hellbent, or you can view them as a connected story, like part 1 and part 2. And I think seeing them as a connected story, part 1 and part 2, is the intended way to watch them. And if you watch them like that, then yeah, Hellbent does get a lot better, but also Heaven Sent does get a bit worse. The themes of grief are well handled, I would say, if you ignore the fact that he completely undoes everything he was working for in this episode in part 2. The main problem with Heaven Sent that comes out on rewatches for me is how Sherlocky it feels. It feels more Sherlock than Doctor Who. I think there are definitely some incredible elements of this episode. I feel like this is the only episode in Series 9 with a noticeably good soundtrack. I think that Peter Capaldi is incredible and enough to carry an episode all by himself, unlike some other frauds I'll fail to mention, but it's not perfect. And Hellbent isn't terrible. A lot of people really don't like this episode, and to be honest, I 100% get it. I 100% get why people would hate this episode. In fact, I mean, I didn't hate it on first viewing, but I definitely didn't like it or consider it above C. But it's one of those things where you really have to be charitable towards the episode. I really have to see what Stephen Moffat is putting down on the table. I really have to get what he's putting down, if you know what I mean. He wants to tell the story with Clara. He wants to make an emotional exit. I will say that one of the big cons with this episode is Mee's random inclusion at the very end, and then of course Clara flying off in her own TARDIS with me. I wish she flew off with me. That shit is all bullshit and kind of ruins Clara's journey and final act in Face the Raven. So yeah, that is pretty bad. Then when you have the general getting shot, you know, that's a bit of a strange writing decision. And then of course you've got Stephen Moffat self-hating on himself. You're not quirky. But still, I think the direction in this episode especially is really good. I think that the production values in this one, the production design, they really pulled out all the stops, especially when you compare it to, say, The Woman Who Lived, right? Another episode in the same series. And you know, an unpopular opinion, I really like the Doctor's new sonic screwdriver that he gets at the very end of this episode. I think it's a very underrated design. It's a shame it was only here for one series, but I do wish that he'd use this sonic screwdriver at least a little bit more. He gets in series 10, which is cool, but he should have used it more, man. It should have been his screwdriver since series 8. It's a great design. But anyway, that is my ranking of series 9. As we can see, the average is low D tier, F tier. Yeah, the series is kind of bad. I don't really know what else to say, but you know, I like Heaven Sent. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to leave a like and subscribe and leave a comment in the description below. I'll see you next time.